were able to achieve this goal. But I do agree with Julie that we are looking for ways to increase revenues to maintain basic services for the community.
So as a priority item, does this then go away because we've worked around it?
That would be my recommendation.
Okay. And then finally, and this is really kind of the catch-all, support AWC and SCA legislative priorities. It's a fairly lengthy list on both parts.
But they're there.
Yeah, but they are there, and we certainly, I think, want to be collaborative and supportive of those that are being developed by other groups, or by groups of which we're a part.
Yeah, I'm just curious what you think of the Public Works Trust Fund and what that might look like next year. I know Jason Kitten really cares about that.
Yes, the Public Works Trust Fund has been critical. So this is one of those good government things that make economic sense that somehow has caught, has been caught in the state's reluctance to increase revenue, if you will, in other areas, and has kind of stolen some of the money from the Public Works Trust Fund. So the Public Works Trust Fund, sounds like most people know, but is like a revolving fund with very low interest rates for local community project, local city and county projects, mainly usually around water, sewer, those kind of things, roads for some communities. And so when it's a revolving fund, so it's constantly renewed, and it has an amazing payback rate, I think of like 99% or something like that, and saves tens of millions of dollars for cities and counties across the state every year. And keeps what's called sweeping the money. So as the money comes in, the legislature has been using it to fund operations instead of keeping it back in the pot. This past year, we did kind of stop the bleeding, if you will, in agreeing that, okay, we're not going to put the money back in, but we're not going to take any more out. So as the money comes back in, we're going to allow it to stay in there. And then also adjusted it a little bit, making some tweaks so that it really focused on some of the smaller cities and really that don't have other options on where to go for dollars to make sure that they can access it. I think that's going to be something that remains on people's agenda, following that, making sure that it does remain robust, and is definitely a priority.
Can I ask sort of a follow-up question? Because, and I know Senator Wellman's been interested in a state infrastructure bank. Are you hearing or sensing anything there? Because that also then would potentially become an option for local financing.
That is a great point. Senator Wellman is extremely passionate about that. I know Senator Cooter is also from the Bellevue area looking at that, and so I think there will definitely be a discussion about that.
I was at a meeting today in which Patty Cooter was and talked about it, but from what I understood, she had to leave, and then some of the other people that are members who are talking, who have been a part of the discussion group, said it is not ready for prime time. It's not going to happen that quickly. There's certain rules in our state about gifting public funds that haven't really been clarified, and so it's an idea, but it's not going to be any solution. And needless to say, the banking community is not looking at it with enthusiasm, yeah, to say the least. Cool.
I would point out the state is pretty much at its bonding capacity right about now. And so once we pass the capital budget, so looking at some of these alternatives and keeping a public works fund and things like that going will be critical, because we're not looking at a huge amount of capacity remaining with the state, but that's for another time.
Other topics that might not be on the list that folks want to bring up? Debbie?
Well, I would be remiss, I had to look up exactly what the award was that Tana just received, but we certainly want to congratulate you for your recent award with regard to advocacy for children's health. And for those who may not know, she received the American Academy of Pediatrics National 2017 Child Health Advocate Award in a ceremony that was held for the Washington chapter. So thank you for your work and thank you. And well done.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, give me your elevator pitch on what you think this legislative session is going to look like and what's actually going to come out of it.
Well, I think we'll get a capital budget, and I think we'll have some sort of discussion about the other hostage, which is the Mercer decision. I think that usually a supplemental budget and the bills that are left over is what we would put on our plate, and not anything particularly new. So you can go back and look and see what bills are left over. There'll be a couple of issues, like I said, AARP came in with a new idea, a couple of things like that. But even those, if they're introduced, they don't stay alive over the next break, because we start with a new biennium. So it's a mop-up type of, it's a supplemental budget. It's making sure that what we did in the budgets continue on. And there isn't a lot of money in any of them, so you're not going to see a lot of new projects or new efforts. But, you know, that's why Aubrey Davis is out there, so we can try it in the supplemental budget. But I don't see any major things coming forward. I think we might send some things to the voters. There's not going to be us voting with one vote.
I think what we'll see in the coming session is us getting out on time. I think that's a key priority. I think that we'll pass some very kind of specific bills that have been held up for a long time by not having a partner in the Senate, if you will. I think we're talking about something around, voter engagement or voter registration. I think hopefully we'll do gender pay equity, things around like a reproductive parity act, maybe. Sorry?
Please.
Yeah, exactly. Probably legal financial obligation reform, kind of around criminal justice. Again, things that have had bipartisan support but just not been able to come up in the Senate. Definitely passing the car tab issue that Representative Clibborn mentioned earlier. I think, again, will be quite right off the bat. Housing issues, everybody knows, and opioid issues, that those are two of the most critical issues that we need to address. So I think there'll be a focus on policies that don't really cost dollars, right? Opioids and housing will be big dollar items, but some of that will, again, I think will be hopefully around like preventing income discrimination in rental housing. So right now, if you're a foster kid or get veterans benefits or domestic violence or Section 8 vouchers, people can prevent you from renting even though all money is green. So making sure that people have access to rental housing. So there'll be policy issues that will be passing that kind of have been pent up, if you will. But I do think that, there's not a lot of money in there, so it's going to be dancing around the edges and dealing with what the feds do or don't do, and the capital budget.
You'll hear a lot about 405, but you don't have to worry this year. That's in that place.
So, coming on as new city manager, one of the things I approached the council about doing this, just meeting with our delegation and having an informal conversation and, why? I mean, I think ultimately it's about building relationships with you. We don't have a dedicated intergovernmental director, At other cities I've worked at, we've had that, we've had that person who could bird dog these, whether they're county issues or whether they're state issues for us. But it's our elected officials that are on the hook for doing that, or it's Kirsten, or it's myself, or it's you, honestly. So, this is in my mind kind of the, and part of it too is, I know many of you, Bruce, many of you have long-lasting relationships with you, but I don't. Some of us are new, we don't know you that well, and so it really is about, I just think, kind of, let's get together, let's build a relationship. Let's continue to work in partnership for some of the issues that, of course, matter to our residents. And that's initially kind of the reasoning behind all this, to kind of, because I don't think we've done this before, but I'm hoping that it's something we can do going forward.
You
So
should do
thank you
it.
for meeting with us. And I know the mayor has one big question to ask. This one.
In there.
He still doesn't.
To
end it.
It's back up in item 1. It is item 1D. How can the city council support you? It's a great question. And I think it merits a couple minutes of.
No, most cities either have, like you said, an intergovernmental person, or they have, even with that, they often have all of us come in, and some of them have more than one
A
district.
lobbyist or
If you're
that too.
Renton, you have
Yes,
4
that's right.
districts, so you all get a chance to sit down. I think it's really healthy, and I was always surprised that we didn't do it. So I think it's a great idea, and I think it is very helpful, not just because we know you, but I think we can hear your voices when we're sitting in the room and trying to make decisions. So I think it's good.
I agree, I think it's great. I do think that we have a unique situation as well, in that we are a close-knit community, and you guys do have access to us, and to have Representative Clibborn be the chair of the committee that our community cares the most about transportation. And now I would be loath if I didn't mention that Senator Wellman is now going to be chair of education in the Senate, and so that's probably the second issue that our community cares about the most. So we have, amazing representation there. And then on these kind of AWC issues, as Representative Clibborn mentioned, I chair the local government caucus, and so definitely passionate about these issues. And I sit on the budget committee, so I think money oriented. So there's a really nice nexus on that. So on one hand, again, we kind of do hear you reflected in our ears all the time. And having said that, we welcome you guys to invite us to these kind of things. I know many of you come down and advocate in Olympia, and we really appreciate that. And and all the regional boards that you serve on, that really helps build those relationships and those connections with other legislators, other communities that help move our agenda forward. And so, I think that has been also so key on so many of these issues, that people know you, people know how much you care about the region and about the whole state, and that really helps reflect and helps us get our job done, so it doesn't just sound like, oh, that's a Mercer Island issue, which sometimes people still kind of say, but when we go broader, it helps our agenda as well. So I just want to, just want to mention that.
Since we're all from Mercer,
Yeah.
we do kind of get branded.
I think it's always worth remembering too, and for, all of us have been in Olympia during session, but what we see is that you are barraged with interest groups of every sort, whether it be the mobile home lobby or the nurses lobby or every other imaginable group, and it does, I think, make it all that much more important that we make sure that you're aware of what our concerns are as you're trying to balance all these competing needs. Anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn this evening, council members? No?
Thank you.
Senator Representatives, okay, thank you. Okay, we are then adjourned.